Good morning. My name is Barb Tapovatz, and we're here at the Hedberg Public Library. I have my solo watercolor exhibit for the month of March 2010. This is especially special to me because I served on the Friends of the Library Board for 6 years and then the Library Board for 6. So when I was invited to bring a couple paintings in to see if I'd be considered for exhibiting, I was thrilled. This is one of my latest ones. This is called wet on dry paper, which allows you more control of the pigment than if you do it on wet paper, and allows you to get some nice brilliant colors. I started taking lessons about 4 years ago from Marilyn Keating at L'Atelier. There was an article in the paper that just invited people, and I thought, boy, I loved art in high school. I wonder if I could do anything. So I went, and they were very welcoming, outfitted me with brushes and paint and paper, and said, let's give it a try. I had no clue where to start, so it's been a wonderful journey. This next picture and this next use gesso, which is kind of a thick paste-like substance that you put on with a spoon with the end of your paintbrush, however you want, whatever effect you want, so that you let that dry, and then you paint over it, and actually your colors can puddle in those little designs that you've made, those little 3D effects. This is on a real heavy watercolor paper. This I painted for my daughter's new bedroom. This is Molly, my Bichon, and I used the gesso again to create a 3D effect and give more of a volume, more volume to her fur. And she does have a lot of volume to her fur. Up here, you've painted your background and just sprinkle salt in there, and that salt creates activity and creates all different kinds of design. I'm still trying to paint my black schnauzer, but black is a little hard to get effects with, so that's a work in progress. This is my backyard, my garden, with a gazing ball. Marilyn helped me. Marilyn Keating is our instructor at L'Atelier, and she helped me understand that I had to also paint what was reflected in the gazing ball, which was my house. So tried to get that in there too. There's so much to learn with this. It's a non-ending process. I thought when I started watercolor that once you put your color down, you were all done. If you made a mistake, you had to start over. But that's not true. You can lift color, you can blend colors, you can glaze over. When I started this poinsettia for a Christmas card, it was just pretty much reds and a little bit of oranges and yellows in there. And Marilyn kept saying, give it more color, give it more depth, give it more depth. So I just kept painting and adding purples and, you know, some blues and some different colors to create a more of a 3D effect. This is one of my favorites. This one is the use of white space for your snow. You paint a background, you use a mask to keep all these whites purely white, because once you've got color on there, it's hard to get it off entirely. So I masked some of these and then did the background and let that dry, and then you come back and do your berries and your little stems and things. And then Marilyn helped me blend this all in so it looked more realistic. But this is just a bow with lots of berries on it. This is an interesting one. I'd had major surgery and I was home recuperating, and several of the girls from the art class said, well, come and paint at your house. So they came out and we sat up on the dining room table and we painted, and they'd had a lesson on painting poppies. And I had missed it because I was out with my surgery. So they were showing me how, and I tried while they were there, and it just didn't look right. So they left, and I thought, I can do better than that. So I sat down and painted this, and when I took it in to class for critique, they laughed and they said, you must have been under the influence when you did that, and very well might have been. residual drugs, poppy fields. This is Autumn Swirl. This is a technique where you take actual leaves and freeze them so they become more pliable, not brittle. You actually put a lot of paint on the back side, the vein side of the leaf, and you place it. First you do your background, just of the colors you want to use for your painting. Then you put these leaves on here and press it down, and you let it dry completely so you get the shapes and the veining. And then after that's all dry, you take the leaves back off and you do highlights and, you know, do some negative painting to make it more interesting. Well, that's how that one evolved. This is called Pastel Pears. This was one of my very early works, and we were told that things don't have to appear as they appear in nature. I never saw a blue pear, but makes a more interesting picture than if it were actually true to life. So again, just put in your different colors. This is a wet on wet. You wet the portion that you want to paint, and then you just drop your colors in and let it move. It's amazing. It's amazing what it'll do. You try to bring these same colors down into kind of a reflection to tie your picture together. So I don't know if they'd be worth eating, but they're kind of pretty. This is Trio of Sunflowers. This is on a different kind of paper. This is called Yupo, and it's actually a paper that has a very thin layer of plastic. The beauty of Yupo is if you make a mistake, you can wipe it right off. It's wonderful. You can just take your whole picture off if you don't like where it's going. And again, you have to keep putting lots of glazes, lots of layers on to get the depth of color that you might want. But that was a lot of fun. You can paint very quickly on this. Okay, this is another sunflower, entirely different than the last one. This again is wet on dry, and it's very precise, a little more correct, a little more accurate. Just a different style. And again, with this one, I put some purples in here and reds and trying to get an interesting color. And then again, sprinkled the salt in there to get an effect. Then you can also take a little pick and just pick color off to make a texture as well. That's kind of a fun, I call that bright face sunflower. This is another one with the leaves. You see a lot of these. We've done these a lot in class because it practices a lot of different techniques. There's salt, there's rubbing alcohol dropped in here, which makes interesting little patterns. But this was all leaves. And you take wax paper rounds and put them on to save spaces for some of your grapes that you want to put in later, for the lighter ones. And then after everything is dry, then you go back in and paint around things and accent the ones that you want to stand out more. I did this for my living room, so you can do things with specific colors to blend into your home. If you haven't noticed by now, I do love red. This is one of my favorites, actually. I wanted it to be in abundance, and so by crunching it in, I mean, I purposely had this mat smaller and the frame smaller because I wanted it to look like there were so many geraniums they just couldn't fit in the picture. And you start with some yellow and oranges because the light's hitting it this direction, and then blend in some darkers to show where the shadows are. This was fun to do. You can't go too far wrong with geraniums. This next one is a friend's garden. And our lesson was to paint something, a garden, but it had to have something man-made in it. Thus the little statue in here with the delphiniums. And this is on Yupo too, and you'll notice the really deep or bright colors. They're very vibrant when you paint on Yupo. I did a hummingbird, and he started out tiny, and I just liked him so much I kept painting and painting, and he turned out to be like a 5-pound hummingbird. But this is the garden. This is the last one, and this is a whole different way of doing things. Again, masked out the white stuff to preserve it, and then you put a lot of pigment, a lot of darks in the back here, so that your flowers will really pop out. And some of these actually had color in there, and you just kind of erase it. You take a brush and just kind of lift some of these colors out, so it puts it more into the background and gives more of an overall effect. And then you just put in some colors here to show how the leaves are turned, the petals are turned and everything. But it's very dramatic. They're kind of fun to do. So that's it. That's my exhibit, which I would like to dedicate to Marilyn Keating. She's a wonderful, wonderful teacher, and I think without her encouragement, I might have had just one lesson and gone home. But it's been a great trip, and I sure appreciate all she's done.